welcome to episode number 8 of the SCSL here on NCAA 14. And our League One game here in week 8 of this first season going to be Louisville at Georgia Tech. This is our first time watching Colin Mentor and his Louisville Cardinals this year. They come in with, I believe, a 3-2 record. Do not quote me on that though. And it's a 4th and 2 for Louisville here early on. Well, actually midway through this first quarter. They're going to convert right there, and later on a 3rd and 11, Jawan pass. Going to fire that one along the sideline down to about the 16, set up a first down. And Pass would pitch this one out, and he would take it into the end zone for the touchdown. Trey Smith would open the scoring here, put Louisville on the board. Later on, your time's running down here in this first quarter. Jawan Pass would keep this one himself. He'd take it across midfield down to the Georgia Tech 40. That would take us to the end of the first quarter in a 7-0 ball game. That drive would ultimately stall out, and so out would come the field goal unit, and that kick would be good, and Louisville would take the 10-0 lead. And 3:34 to go here, second quarter. The pass over the middle, and then a broken tackle, and Devontae Pete going to get 24 yards across midfield. And again, the drive would stall out, and Louisville would have to settle for 3 more, and that kick would also be through the uprights. So it's a 13-0 Louisville lead. And in the final minute of the first half, Louisville driving again, but pass will be picked off right there. And so the first turnover of the game on the interception for this Georgia Tech defense would keep the score at 13-0 heading into the locker room. Then on a 3rd and 5 here in the third, a nice grab by Jalen Smith along the sideline on a 3rd and 15. They'll get enough to convert there, but again, the drive would stall out, and Louisville would once again have to settle for 3. That kick would be good. They would take a 13-0 lead. Georgia Tech would move down the field and kick a field goal of their own on the next drive, make it a 13-point ball game. And then on a 4th and 1 here, we've got 5 minutes to go. Georgia Tech going for it. They would convert, pick up 8 yards, and move the chains. And later on, down to now 3:45 left, they would go ahead and rumble this one into the end zone. That triple option offense finally able to punch it in. And because Louisville's had to settle for 3 field goals, it's only a 6-point game. Now pass to go to the screen, but that would be picked off. Pass's second pick of the day is going to be returned for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, Georgia Tech has the lead. I believe that was Care for the second time today at the pick 6. And all of a sudden, Georgia Tech leads after trailing for most of this game and really being shut down for most of the first 3 quarters. All of a sudden, they've got the lead. But Jalen Smith going to make a nice grab right there. So they're going to try and get this one into field goal range. Not sure what Louisville's doing, not calling timeouts. They're still only at midfield. And on a 3rd and 8, that pass will be caught by Pete. Set up a 4th and 4, but the clock's still ticking, and Louisville's still not calling a timeout. They've got 3 left, but instead they've run the clock all the way down to 14 seconds. Pass going to scramble this one, and he'll pick up the first down inside the 35, down to 8 seconds. A timeout called by Louisville. And so they did manage to get into field goal range anyway. They've worked it down to 8 seconds after the timeout ties the kick. The field goal is on the way, and it is good. So Louisville will escape with the 19-17 win after nearly making a mess of things in that 4th quarter. Pass not too great through the air, but he did have 79 yards on the ground, including a big 4th down conversion to get him in the range for the winning field goal. And Etheridge had 5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks for the Louisville defense. Blanton Kreck, the field goal kicker, made all 4 of his field goal tries, including a long of 50. He should be the player of the game as Louisville gets the win. Looking at the rest of the League One games, South Carolina takes down Tennessee. Bentley did not have a great game, but the player of the game would be Dowdle, who had 24 carries for 152 yards and 2 scores. Pollard also had 12 catches for 174 yards through the air. And defensively, 7 tackles for loss for Fennell. And a forced fumble from Williams. but it was not recovered, and so no turnovers for the defense, but they get the win anyway. Maryland upsets Iowa. They knock the Hawkeyes down to 6-2, and they fall from the top 25 polls after the 23-7 loss at the hand of the Terrapins. So they would improve to 3-3 on the year, would Maryland. And Davenport, your player of the game, 9 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown, 4 for 34, and a score for Edwards. Watson had 11 tackles, and defensively there were no turnovers for Maryland. Their kicker made both of his field goal tries. As Arkansas gets shellacked by Alabama, they lose 34-13. Noland 18 of 41, 231 yards, to score 2 interceptions. So not much doing for the offense today. Harrell did have a receiving score though, and defensively, there wasn't a ton to write home about for Arkansas on the defensive side of the ball. But their kicker would make his field tries, and Indiana going to get hammered by Michigan. And Ramsey just had a terrible, terrible game. He went 5 of 27 for 30 yards and 4 interceptions. 18 completion percentage with 4 picks, no touchdowns, only 30 yards. That'll give him a QB rating of 0. And so that was just terrible, and Indiana predictably will get hammered on the backs of such a terrible quarterbacking performance. Jones and Brown Jr. both had interceptions, so I mean this defense did at least make some plays. They just got no help from the quarterback and the offense. That's why they got crushed. Ohio State will hammer Rutgers. And Victor, your player of the game, 8 catches, 104 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I say that is deserving of player of the game honors for sure. And defensively, Johnson had a pick for the Buckeyes. That was a 38-yard pick 6 as they hammered Rutgers. Their kicker only went 1 for 2 on field goal tries, though. And that would do it for League 1. So we move on to the League 2 game. It'll be some MACtion coming up for you here today. RNP, Royal and Poison, and his Eastern Michigan Eagles will be hosting Ohio here. Eastern Michigan is 4-1 with a 2-0 record in MAC play. Ohio comes in with a 4-2, 3-1 conference record. And Eastern Michigan, we're already late in the first quarter here as Eddie Doherty will make the catch for 13. And later on it would be 4th and goal, and so Eastern Michigan would have to settle for 3. But the kick would be good, and they would take a 3-0 lead here. And 50 seconds to that first quarter, that pass will be picked off. And this Eastern Michigan defense with an early turnover here. We'll see if the offense can take advantage. First down from the 40 after the interception, and that'll be Shaq Van making a nice gain there. He's got 16 yards into Ohio territory. Later on, a 3rd and 15 as we're now into the second quarter. Van will make the catch on the screen. He'll break a tackle. Shaq Van down the sideline inside the 10, down to the 7. 30 yards on the screenplay for Shaq Van. And then that pass will be caught in the flat, a broken tackle, and Ian Erickson into the end zone for an 8-yard touchdown. Tyler Wiegers is 10 of 10 for 91 yards in the score. Eastern Michigan leads 10-0. They have the ball back here. 2:55 left first half. Van will get the first down right there. Later on, it's 4th and inches here. Running the clock down a little bit. They'll give to Van. Van's got a nice hole in Shaq Van with 12 yards inside the 10. Eastern Michigan would call a timeout. The drive would stall out, and on 4th and goal, out comes the field goal unit to make it a 13-0 game. The kick is good, and Eastern Michigan would take a 13-0 lead into the locker room. Ohio trying to get something going, and instead what they've got is another interception. That pass picked off, thrown right to the Eastern Michigan defender. He'll return this one inside the 20. The offense will start in the red zone. Later on, it's 1st and goal. They'll give to Van, and Shaq Van's into the end zone untouched. 5-yard touchdown run for Van. It's 20-0 Eastern Michigan. Ohio would drive down the field, and on 4th and 12, they would send out the field goal unit to break the shutout. The kick is good, and Ohio finally on the board with 3:10 left first quarter. Eastern Michigan driving down the field themselves, and that'd be Tyler Wiegers taking this one into the end zone for a 16-yard score. So it's now 27-3 here as we begin this fourth quarter. But Ohio would take that one into the end zone. It's now a 17-point game. Would be 16 after they got the 2-point conversion. And then Quinton Maxwell would take it in on the read option. And just like that, it's a 10-point game. 2:56 left. 4th and 10 for Ohio. They need this. Going toward the sideline, man open. It's Pappy White Jr. for 31 yards. And on 4th and 10, Ohio converts. Next play, looking to put it into the end zone. It's White in the back of the end zone, and Pappy White Jr. will make the catch. And so just like that, Ohio has stormed back from down 24 points. Now it's a 3-point game. 3rd and 8 here. This is a massive play for the Eagles. Going deep. Cut has a man wide open. And Wiegers with perhaps the dagger to convert that 3rd and 8. Ohio burns its second timeout. And from there, the Eagles could run out the clock. A valiant comeback attempt by Ohio, but in the end, it was all for naught. As Eastern Michigan wins 27-24. Shaq Van ought to be your player of the game. 19 carries, 112 yards, and a score. 9 catches, 62 yards as well in the receiving game for Van. And looking at it, interception for Terry Myrick and Rachwall. And then Fricano made both of his field goal tries, and Eastern Michigan builds a big early lead and then holds on late to get the win. Elsewhere, Michigan picks up its second win of the year. Radio, your Wolverines finally got another win, and Shea Patterson had a massive game, 16 of 31, 257 yards, 4 scores. No interceptions, and Indiana was just overmatched. 2 receiving scores for Charbonnet, 1 for Collins, 1 for McKeon. And defensively, very balanced on the tackles. No one had more than 5. And then if you're looking for turnovers, well, there's a pick from Thomas. And that was it for this. Well, no, there's an interception for Green as well. So they had 2 interceptions. They get their second win of the year. Elsewhere, UCLA pounds Stanford 35-17. Your player of the game would be Josh Kelly. 20 carries, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I believe that was Wilton Spate had a rushing touchdown of his own. Defensively, 9 tackles for Barnes. A 92-yard pick 6 for Darnay Holmes. And that was the only turnover, but it was a big one. And Georgia hammers Vandy 52-14. A 5-game win streak for the Bulldogs after they lost their first 2 games of the year. They crushed Vandy 52-14. White had 23 carries, 190 yards, but Fromm is your player of the game, throwing for 256 yards, 4 scores, and 1 pick. Only had 9 incompletions, went 18-27. And defensively, you have a fumble recovery from Rochester, a pick, and a forced fumble for Cox. And so 2 turnovers for this Georgia defense in the blowout win over the Commodores. And Washington State scores 21 points in the first quarter, and they beat Oregon 38-17. Herbert returns from injury and does not play too well. 313 yards, 1 score, but 3 interceptions. Verdell had 22 carries, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. Pittman, 6 catches, 136 yards, 7 for 116 for Johnson. 10 tackles for Winston Jr. And a pick and a fumble recovery from Holland. So he had 2 turnovers, but it's still a blowout win for Washington State. Boise State, after dropping its first 2 games, has rattled off 5 straight wins of its own, this time over Nevada. Madison is your player of the game. 28 carries, 183 yards, and 3 touchdowns. A 6.5 yards per carry average, and Alexander Madison went off for Boise State today. Defensively, fumble recovery from Lashley, a interception from Nawahine and Williams. Williams also had a fumble or forced fumble. Weaver with a forced fumble recoveries from Walker and Mava, and so that was, I believe, 5 turnovers for this Boise State defense in the blowout win over the Wolfpack. But that'll do it for me, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day, everybody.